Hello! Welcome back to Zebadextra v Phebo. We missed you guys. We took a week off, but we have watched Sisu and we're ready to review it for you. So if you haven't watched our previous episodes, we mentioned that we were going to watch a film called Sisu next. Yes. And we rented it on Vudu.
Yes.
You could watch it on HBO Max, but we don't have that.
So
right?
HBO Max is going to be streaming on HBO Max when they finally put it on there.
Or just Max.
Max.
So it's not there yet.
On there currently.
Okay.
And there's no established release date as of today.
Okay, so if you want to watch this, you need to rent it from somewhere like Vudu or Amazon Prime.
Correct.
All right, so this, without giving any spoilers, but if you know our channel, this will be a full spoiler review of this film.
Yes, it will.
But without spoilers, this is about a man. He kind of embodies this persona of hope and like endurance for the people of Finland during World War II.
Yes.
And it's about his journey from one place to the next and how he gets there.
It's important to mention that he's tired. Like, he's just tired of the war. He's tired of, all the stuff that's going on there. And he's just trying to be alone. He's trying to be on his own, and, he doesn't want to bother anybody. He doesn't want to be bothered. He aspires to be a hermit, basically.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, he moves out into the middle of a fjord.
To do mining, though.
Yeah.
But he's not planning on staying there, right? Well, we don't know.
If he didn't find anything, I'm sure he would have stayed there for a while.
So it is, not really alluded to. There's not a ton of talking in this film. But we guess that he has been married before, but all of his family is gone. So he's alone.
They do mention that in the movie.
They mention that his family is all deceased?
Yes.
Oh, which side mentions that?
The Germans do.
The Germans say that?
Yeah, when they talk about it, when you finally find out his name, that's when they also talk about his background and history.
Okay, I didn't remember them saying for sure that his family was deceased, but you definitely get that feel just from his energy. He just seems just totally he's like a wasteland of a person. And
he's wearing a wedding ring through the whole movie. So. But
my point is, after he finishes this journey he's on, he may be going to go help family somewhere. We don't know.
Maybe.
It's not necessarily explained. So, if that sounds interesting to you, there's a lot of fighting. Think John Wick with a lot less talking.
Yes.
This is a set in the historical time of World War II.
Yes.
In Finland?
At the end of World War II in Finland, yes.
They are in Finland. Okay.
Yes.
It's very beautiful. It's very desolate, but very beautiful.
Yes.
You get a lot of panning of the countryside. But this is during war, so it's also, devastated.
And the other thing I would throw in, we talked about it while we were watching it. This almost had like a spaghetti western type feel to it, where, in the old spaghetti westerns, they were in like Italian, and they were dubbed in English. This is in English, but it almost feels dubbed.
Why did it feel dubbed to you?
I don't know. It had that feel. It had a similar feel to those old westerns that I used to watch with like my grandpa.
So there's like chapter markers with each chapter, and they look kind of western. Just like they did with RRR. And in John Wick, there was literally like soundtrack going doo loo loo like a western, but they didn't do that in here, right? But there was definitely like sound markers at the beginning of each chapter. Along with it, they would have like a tone for that chapter with the music. Yeah. So anyway, I would say that I liked this movie. What would you say?
I liked it too. So
for me, liked it is like, I would recommend this to you, but
with caveats.
Yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily rush out to watch it again. Loved it is like, I'm ready to watch it again.
Yeah. So, like, if you thought John Wick was over the top, maybe not. Maybe not watch this. If you have,
I thought John Wick was over the top more than this.
Yeah,
way more.
Yeah.
Because he's battling like a set number of people in this film, but John Wick was just like they're going to keep coming forever.
True.
You were saying if you have PTSD.
Yeah, like if you have PTSD, it may be triggering for you. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of if you watched our Renfield review, there was some kind of similarity in the
way that they were killing people.
Yeah, because like there were like body parts flying off, and
yes, it's more realistic than Renfield, but body parts because there were bombs. He goes through a minefield at one point.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of death. There's a lot of gore. But in this one, it's like it's for a purpose because there's this war that people are putting upon him. He's not just going out there and trying to just murder all these people.
No, I totally agree.
We also want to let you know that there's trigger for R word.
Yes.
And not that you see it, but it's heavily implied.
It's implied. It's definitely implied.
Yeah. However, this film, we're going to start getting into spoilers now. He gets vengeance, and the people who he's directly fighting against. Like, you get a good feeling at the end that the women are going to come out to a good ending.
Yes.
He is going to do what he needs to do.
Yes.
So, there's that.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's
get into it.
Let's just throw into it here.
Okay. So, do you remember his actual name?
It's Atami. So it's Aatami.
Okay. So, I think Tim heard that one time in the film.
Yes.
I did not. So, in my notes, I just called him Sisu the whole time. That's not his name, though.
So Sisu is a state of mind or a state of being in Finland. It's a word that the Finnish people have that apparently does not translate well. And it's basically somebody who
will never give up.
All hope is lost, and they will not give up. They will continue to fight to the end.
So, if you're battling against something heavy right now, this may be a feel-good show for you because that's the message of this. Like, when all hope is lost, there's a driving force in humanity that's going to battle against evil no matter what.
Yes.
All right, so we're in Finland.
We are. Finland. 1944.
Chapter 1 is called The Gold.
The Gold.
So, like I said, there's not a lot of talking in this film. In fact, like the whole first chapter, there's no talking.
I don't think there's any further.
But you don't need it. I didn't feel you needed it.
There's really no talking until he meets the Germans.
Yeah.
And that's towards the end of chapter 1 and beginning of chapter 2.
All right. So, I'm just going to call him Sisu, but his name is Atami, but I refer him as Sisu. He finds a small nugget of gold in this river in Finland. He's digging, and like the next day, he's starting to dig this big hole. And he dozens of planes fly overhead while he's mining, and he hears gunfire. And we don't find out till later, but he's a seasoned soldier.
Right. It may also be important to point out that at the very, very beginning of the film, there was also some words that they threw up on the screen that was talking about, it was towards the end of the war, and the Germans were pulling out of Finland, and they were basically destroying everything. Roads, buildings, people.
Oh.
So they were just kind of going like a scorched earth kind of deal there.
Oh.
And so that comes into play in a little bit.
Nighttime falls, and we see that he sees that they're bombing in the distance, and he goes back to his hole. The next day, he finds a giant gold vein.
Huge, yeah. It was.
So I grew up in California mining country, like the area that the gold rush happened in California. And so like gold pan mining and all that was always like something that we talked about where I grew up. But it was understood, like, never expect to find more gold than this much.
Yeah.
And he finds a huge
vein.
gold vein.
Yeah, this would have been comparable to, like, you know, one of the huge gold strikes in California.
Yeah, and if anybody hears about it, they all come running. But he's there by himself.
I mean, he ends up filling 2 saddlebags full of the gold.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing probably about 80 pounds of gold.
I don't know.
Because remember, at the end, he's like, "This is heavy."
Yeah. Spoiler.
This is heavy.
So he chunks it up. He puts it in his bags, loads it on his horse, and he's leaving the place that he's mined. He takes a freezing bath in the stream before he leaves. He's cleaning himself all up. We see that he has a lot of wounds,
lot of scars,
healing or healed scars, big scars,
big. I mean, I've got one for my heart surgery, but his were like twice as long at least.
Plus, they look like they weren't maybe professionally sewn up.
True.
So we get like our little hints about him there before we even find out that he's a seasoned soldier.
Right.
He takes the mined up gold onto his horse and he starts back for home. We're guessing he's going home because they've shown his wedding ring, and so we're like, okay, he's going home. Chapter 2. There was no talking in Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called The Nazis. We see army vehicles, weapons, and soldiers approach him on his road back home. So he's just doing like a slow walk with his horse.
Yep.
He has his dog. He has his dog with him.
Yeah, the dog is... but didn't he like shoo the dog off when he saw
in a second. But so he's walking with his horse and his dog.
Yeah.
And as he slowly rides past them, there's like 3 or 4 vehicles. There's a motorcycle with a ride-along. Right. There's a tank, and there's a wagon full of soldiers and another covered wagon, which we find out actually has a bunch of women. That there's one soldier that's R-wording them in the wagon.
Yeah.
Is what we...
They do not show it.
Right.
They very heavily imply it.
Mm-hmm. So he's riding past them slowly, just kind of like ignoring them, and they laugh at him as he rides past. The man comes out of the wagon that has all the women in it, and he goes to shoot Sisu, or Atami, and the head officer... I'm just going to call him the officer because they don't ever say his name. IMDb has his name, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Also, the guy that came out of the wagon, IMDb says his name is Wolf, but they also don't say his name.
So here's the thing, like, literally through this whole movie, like, names are not important.
Yeah, because they're just not.
Yeah. The only thing that's important is the word Sisu.
Yeah. Which they actually don't even say. Right? They say what his name is to the Russians later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but they don't. I don't think they ever.
There's
say
no
the word
naming.
Sisu.
They just know that here's a force. They have to try to stop it, and he's,
Yeah.
All right. So he goes to shoot him, and the officer stops him and says he's riding to his death anyway. He rides up to this. I don't think he's at the town yet, but he sees some men that are hung up. From the telephone poles. Yes. So he just is walking past this devastation. And he finds more soldiers just sitting there chilling with their car. It's a car, right? Yeah, they have a vehicle.
Yeah, they do have a vehicle.
The lead soldier of that, like 5-man group that's there, he yells for him to get off the horse. He inspects his bag and starts pushing him around. He sees that he has a whole bunch of gold. And Atami leans down and tells his dog, without words, to get out of there.
Yeah.
The dog starts running away, and the soldiers start trying to shoot the dog. They don't shoot him. Right. He tells Sisu Atami to get down on his knees at gunpoint. His rage consumes him. He draws a dagger, and boom. AKA, he's going to fight and kill them all.
Yeah,
I don't need to describe that for you. He's going to kill a lot of people in this movie. Yeah. So, the officer on the tank that passed him going the other way, he heard a few too many shots. And so now...
a lot too many.
Well, yeah, he expected one, and he was like, okay. But then when he heard more, he's like, great. So he drives his tank back to where Sisu killed those 5 men. So, tank officer finds a survivor of those 5 men, and there's a big gold nugget in his hand. So they're like, okay. We're pretty sure we can figure out what's going on here. We get back to the man on the horse, slowly traveling, and the tank is catching up. He sees the tank. He starts running the horse while the tank is shooting him. And he makes it to a minefield, and it explodes.
Yes.
And cuts to the next chapter. Chapter 3 is called The Minefield. He's laying on the ground by his horse, who is deceased, and sees the mines all around him. Also, his gold is scattered all over the ground, and he starts to retrieve it, and the tank and the 2 trucks pull up. The officer halts his men from attacking while he gathers up all the gold. He's just kind of watching him, and I think that they're thinking, well, he's going to gather it up for us so we don't have to.
Yeah.
He picks up a rock and throws it at a mine as they're about to shoot him. So the mine explodes right in front of the men so that he has some not disguise, what's the word?
Smoke screen.
Yeah. So then they really open fire, and he's using his mining pan, like Captain America style, backing up as they're shooting him.
Yes.
Yeah. There's not like a ton of things in this film that I thought were silly, but there's a few things that go like a little over the top like that.
Yeah, that one was a little bit, even I went, what?
Yeah. But nothing in this film is supposed to be funny. Like in John Wick, there's definitely spots that are supposed to be funny.
Right.
But not this film.
No, this is a very dry drama type movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the officer yells, "Ceasefire," and they climb down from their cars to assess. There's lots of smoke they can't see, but they're like, well, we've been shooting long enough. He's probably dead.
Yeah.
2 soldiers are told to go out, and they do so into the minefield hesitantly. In all the smoke from the gunfire, he doesn't see, and a mine is literally thrown at him. So Sisu had picked up one of these mines and chucked it right at him.
Yes.
2 more soldiers are sent out, and they both die the same way. And the officer goes, "How many mines did you bury here?" And his second in command says, "All of them."
All of them.
Next, the head officer orders 2 of the women from the wagon be brought out, tied together with ropes, and they're going to walk in front of the tank so that he can't keep attacking them. And one of the women volunteers to go out instead of her friend / sister. And she's the only woman that we're going to hear words from in the film. And I didn't catch her name, but it's on IMDb. But I'm just going to refer to her as the woman or the brave woman.
Rebecca.
Okay. At the end of this chapter, they find his dog tags on the ground, and they pick them up. And then cut chapter 4, The Legend. The officers are talking in the tank as it rides along. Mm-hmm. The commanding officer has talked to them, on the radio?
Yes. And this is where you find out all of his backstory.
Okay. So they've told Wolf on the radio that they need to immediately turn around and stop trying to engage with this guy and come back because they're lucky that they didn't die.
Right.
And the commanding officer tells Wolf that this is actually an infamous soldier who defeated over 300 Russian soldiers because the Finnish army would just send him out to just go kill people.
Right.
And he would just never stop. Like if he had a job to do, he would just go do it. And then they'd send him out again. And then they'd send him out again. And now we understand that that's what he's left. He's left fighting this war, gone off to go mine gold.
And so one of the things is the Russians had killed his family.
Oh, that's what they said.
Yes, that's what they talked about there. And that's why he absolutely hated the Russians and was determined to kill them.
Yeah. But then at some point, I mean, obviously he didn't get rid of all the Russians. At some point he was like, I've had enough, I'm going to go mine gold.
Right.
But so he's brought back into fighting because these Germans won't leave him alone. So they're these soldiers. So they've decided that to ignore the commanding officer's direct order because the lead officer is like, he has so much gold. We're losing this war. We just need to escape with all this gold and set ourselves up somewhere else, and we're going to, what's it called when you leave the war?
Desert.
They're going to desert, and that's their plan. But they've got to catch up to him first and get the gold. So Wolf tells his commanding officer, or the lead officer there, that the Russians call him Koshai. That's his name, the legend of Koshai to the Russians.
And what does Koshai
which means
mean?
The immortal.
Yes.
So now we move back to Sisu. He finds a burnt truck and lays down by it. He finds bullets in his extremities and uses his dagger to get them out. This is not the only time that you're going to watch him brutally dig things out of his body to try to get himself well enough to move on.
Yes.
So he falls asleep, and the tank and soldiers have made their way to him. He hides under the truck as they pass by. Mm-hmm. However, then he sees that they have dogs. You said that they were German Shepherds?
They are.
They are German Shepherds. So he knows these dogs are going to find him. Even if the soldiers don't see him, he's like... You know, I actually learned watching this movie that I loved that there wasn't a lot of talking. Like, mm-hmm. the film did so well telling the story exactly. We knew exactly what he was thinking without him having to do, like, crazy facial expressions. By the way, everyone in this film is super filthy. You can't hardly see their expressions anyway because their faces are covered in dirt or blood.
Which, I mean, you know, in a wartime, the war zone, that's to be expected.
Yeah. But the filmmaking did such a great job of telling the whole thing. It's like that movie Snowman that we watched, or that book Snowman that they made into a movie that we would watch like every year in elementary school, where it's about a snowman.
Frosty?
No. It's just about a general snowman. I think it's called The Snowman. And there's no words in the whole book, I think.
Really?
Yeah. And it just shows the snowman get built. And then in the nighttime, the snowman goes and finds other snowmen. And then they all get together. And then I think they fly off somewhere.
I've never
And the little boy's like riding on the back or something.
I've never even
You've never heard of this?
I've never heard of this.
Well, it was made into this really beautiful film with really lovely music. And there's no words.
Huh.
Anyway, that's what it would remind me of. So, he's hiding under the truck as they pass him by. He sees the dogs. So before the dogs can get to them, he rolls under the passing truck and attaches himself to the bottom of the truck.
Think Indiana Jones, where he does under the truck and he's holding on. Yeah,
exactly like that. Yeah. Except I think he gets down there from like off the truck, right? Or does he roll under?
He rolls under from the side.
Oh, so it's exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
We need to watch that film again. So anyway, he's under there and he has this big dagger that he's used to defend himself / kill a bunch of people, and he stabs it into the gas tank.
Into the gas tank, yes.
And so now the gas tank is leaking. It's getting all over him, leaking on the ground, and when the dogs get up to it, they smell it, and the soldiers say, "Gasoline!" And so now that they know that there's something wrong with the truck. So the truck stops. They all stop the caravan. They see him running. So he just starts running to the side of the road.
Yeah, he just runs out.
And they start shooting him. They shoot him in the leg. They release the dogs, and then he lights a match right in front of himself, and his whole person is lit on fire.
Yeah, he just lights himself on fire.
So I thought he was going to, like, explode the truck somehow, but the gasoline thing was just to cover himself in fire, and gasoline, so he could light himself on fire.
I'm not sure.
Did not expect that.
I didn't expect that either. I was thinking the same thing. You know, you trail that gasoline, you light a match, and, you know, you blow up the truck. But no.
So he's on fire. He runs into what is very well coincidentally planned a lake right next to him. There's a dock. He jumps into the lake.
Yeah.
So now he's in the bottom of the lake with his bags that are filled with gold. So he's sitting on the bottom of the lake.
Sitting on the bottom. And it should be pointed out, too, that when they were talking about him, they did find out that he was a Finnish commando.
Oh, he was a commando or commander?
Commando.
Commando. So what's a commando?
So a commando is like, that would be like your...
The SEALs, like Navy SEALs?
SEALs, Green Beret, yeah.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't understand that, like me, what does that mean?
So they have
special...
They have a lot of extra training that they go through. So him sitting on the bottom and just releasing a little bit of air at a time, that would be something that commando has been trained to do.
Okay. All right, so the soldiers all come up to the edge of the lake, and they shoot him in the water, and they're like, okay, so he's got to come up at some point, but he doesn't. So now the commander has sent...
Well, he does. He pops up once.
Oh, yeah. He pops up once. They shoot some more. He just gets a quick breath, right?
Yeah.
But at this point, there's a boat out there with 3 soldiers on it. They're going out because they're going to dive down and collect the gold.
Yes.
Because they assume he's dead. So...
Which is dumb because the body would float.
But if it's attached to gold.
Well, if he came up for air, he probably left the gold on the bottom.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it'd be really heavy.
Yeah, well. Anyway, they're desperate to get that gold. So they tell one guy to jump off the boat and go get the gold. So he jumps down there and he's looking all around. So now we have
It's a good plan.
Now we have like our full underwater sequence here. It's a very cloudy looking bottom of a lake. You can't see anything. Yeah, and we see him swimming from behind the guy. And you know that this guy's toast. So not only is he toast, though, I was not expecting this. He makes it so that the man's air supply is available to him. And he breathes the man's air supply.
Yeah. This was a shocker for me as well. I was like, what?
And then that's when you were like, oh, he's a commando.
Yeah. I mean, I guess.
So they can see air bubbles coming up, but like filled with blood.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, one of the other ones go down there. So the next one is like hesitantly jumps down there. He doesn't come up, more air bubbles with blood. So now the third guy, the guy that's been rowing the boat, the officer tells him to get in there, and he's like, no. He starts rowing away, and he's like, if you don't stop, you're what did you say? Mutiny?
You're a deserter.
Deserter, and we'll kill you, which they do. So then he had almost got to the other side of the lake, though. And when he gets shot, we see his boat keep moving, and Sisu pulls the boat off on the other side of the road, on the other side of the lake. So they know that he was just attached to the boat, riding it over, and he gets out, and he pulls the other body onto his back, and they all start shooting him. Is the tank shooting at this time, too?
So the guy that tried to shoot him and missed, the marksman, what did you say?
Wolf. His name is Wolf.
He was like, F this.
That was at this point?
Yeah, and he climbed up on the tank, and he started shooting I guess it'd probably be a .50 caliber machine gun from the tank, which is why you could see like the tracers. So when he was shooting, you saw all those like yellow shots going past. Yeah.
No. Okay. That went right over my head.
Anyhow, so he was on the tank shooting, and it just like he kept hitting, but he kept hitting the other guy that Sisu was carrying.
But at some point, that whole body gets just destroyed. Yeah. So then it's off of his body, and he's still running away, and you can tell he's getting shot. This scene ends because Sisu's dog runs out onto the dock.
Yes.
And as Sisu's running away, and the officer smiles and knows that he's got a way to trap Sisu. So he goes up to the dog while the dog is whimpering, and scene.
Yes.
Next chapter is called Scorched Earth. So Sisu at nighttime comes up to a town. Tim said it looked like it was a gas station.
It was a gas station.
The town is like laid flat. There's a few remnants of buildings. One looks like a gas station. He goes into the building. He's after seeing all the devastation. We don't know that this is his town. This is just the first town.
We don't know. We never find out what his town is.
Yeah. So, but he sits in this town and he falls asleep and he's kind of having nightmare dreams of war and screaming and all this stuff. And then he wakes up and he hears a sound. I didn't catch it at first, but he hears his dog.
Yes.
So then as the dog gets closer, he recognizes it's his dog. He runs out there to go greet his dog. He's so happy. His dog is there. He sees that the dog has a...
like dynamite attached to it.
Was it a dynamite? I just thought it was a flare.
No, because it blows up.
It blows up because they shoot him.
No.
How would they have timed it so the dog was going to blow up right when he got to him? Okay, this is how I interpret it. The dog had a flare attached to him. When he gets to the man, they can see him because he has the flare, so they shoot him.
Oh, that's possible.
That's what I thought.
That is possible.
The tank shot him. So now he's out. The next thing we see, he's like looking up at the sky from his injured position, and the officer is standing over him, and he's like, okay, we're going to hang you now, basically. Mm-hmm. So they put the rope around him and they hoist him up onto the gas station sign, right?
Yes, gas station sign.
And they're hanging him John Wick style, right? Where it's just tightening and tightening and up and up and up.
Yep.
Now he's hanging up there. So the officer walks up to him and pushes him, and the man seems out of it, and his body is just swinging. So the officer takes a chunk of gold and puts it in his pocket.
Yeah.
For your trouble or something.
For your trouble.
And they all walk away. One of the soldiers spits on him. Oh, and Tim pointed out that one of the soldiers took off their hats.
Yeah, so the tank guy.
Yeah.
They had that like leather cap on.
That was
with
the pilot?
goggles. Well, he was the one driving the tank.
Okay.
So he like took his hat off in respect, and then the officer saw it and he took his hat off. And then Wolf, who was standing there with his gun, he like puts it down. So they're all standing there like giving their respects to Sisu,
a worthy opponent.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
sounds like it would end there, doesn't it?
Well, not if you've been watching the show.
Okay.
And know it's only half over. So they start walking away. Sisu's eyes open, and he starts moving his feet. He finds that there's a nail on the pole that he's being strung up on. So he kind of like reaches out for the nail. He feels that he can get a little bit of traction there and push himself up from it. But he can't really stay onto it. So instead, he does something really gross where there's this hole in his body and then there's a nail, and we're just going to leave it at that. It keeps him...
It was rebar, by the way.
Rhubarb?
Rebar.
What's that?
You remember when we were talking about how you make like a cement column and you take the steel rebar and you put it... That's what it was.
Oh, I was thinking that would be like this big.
Nope. No, it's about as big around maybe as my thumb.
Why wouldn't you want it to be really big?
You don't need it very
big. Oh, you don't need it?
No, you just
So for some reason it was sticking out sideways through the pole?
Yeah, it was sticking out at an angle.
All right, so I just don't want to describe that because it was really horrible. So
it was pretty bad.
It's the next day, and he's still hanging on there, and his dog is with him. And you can see his blood is dripping from the pole.
Yes.
And we hear an airplane.
Yes, finally.
And it lands where he's at, and there's a lot of vibration, so it starts kind of like loosening his rope from the pole, which he's only been staying alive because he's using his body to keep himself up. And so then the plane lands, and he slowly the rope starts going off the pole, like slowly sliding off the pole. And the two pilots, or two airmen, they get out of this Nazi airplane.
Yes.
And they're looking around at the gas station. They're
trying to find gas.
Oh, they're trying to find gas.
Yeah.
Well, they must have gas, right?
Well, they had some, but
okay.
Okay.
I didn't catch that. Anyway,
they obviously do not have a logistics supply chain that is helpful.
Okay. I was too traumatized to think of at that point. And so then he falls completely off and onto the ground.
Off.
The whole pole falls over? Or he just comes off?
So
the whole rope comes off.
At the top, the bar that was attached that the sign was hanging from, when the plane came in, it like shook it and like that part started breaking off, and now it was at an angle, and so the rope was kind of sliding down, and it eventually fell off.
Yeah. So he falls onto the ground. One of the men walks up to his body, and the guy goes, he's like, oh, this one's still alive. And the head guy, I guess, goes, well, shoot him and shoot the dog. And so then...
Because the dog is barking like crazy.
Yeah. So then he walks up close to him, and he looks like he's about to do it, but Sisu sweeps the leg.
Sweep the leg.
Yeah.
We sweep the leg.
Yeah. And...
in Finland.
And he falls down and hits his head on a brick or something, and it's just toast. But the lead guy thinks, he's like, okay, now finish the job. Shoot the
dog.
I just want to let you know, the dog does not die.
It does not. So
that makes me feel better.
No dogs were harmed in the making of this movie.
Yeah.
A horse was.
Yeah.
But I'll bet the horse, it wasn't actually blown up. I'll bet it was
All horses go to heaven.
Do they?
Yes.
What about the horse named El Diablo?
I don't know that horse. Yeah. What is this? A different movie we need to watch?
No. It was a racehorse, El Diablo.
That doesn't mean he was a bad horse.
I mean, you named him El Diablo for a reason.
Because he was as fast as the devil.
We are very off track here. Let's get back to the movie.
All horses go to heaven, honey.
Okay.
Okay, so the pilot, he doesn't hear any more noise, and he's like, why aren't you shooting the dog? So he walks over, and Sisu comes up behind him and hits him with a brick on his head, and he falls over.
Yes.
So then Sisu's like inspecting the plane, or no, he just sits down at that point.
Yeah, he just sits down.
He sits down.
Like, this is the part where you see him lose hope. Like, he really just kind of, he gives up. He doesn't have his gold. He has no way to catch up to them. He's just, I mean, you just kind of see it leak out of him.
You see the messages, what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? And he like takes that one gold nugget he has.
He finds it in his pocket.
And he just puts it down. He's sitting there and he just like buries it.
With his foot even. He doesn't even use his hands.
I mean, he has literally given up at that point. But then what happens?
The pilot is still alive.
The pilot is still alive, and what does he see?
The plane.
The plane.
Oh, he hadn't seen the plane yet.
Yes.
Oh. So he looked at the plane and he's like, oh, I could go get my gold.
I can do this.
So he unburies his gold.
That nugget, yeah.
Gets up, and we don't really see him do anything.
We don't.
I think we're at the next chapter now.
We should be. Is this Kill Them All?
Nope. We're still on the same chapter.
Oh.
So, at this part he starts to care for his wounds again.
Oh, yes. And this part is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
He'll put a little, like, in the bullet holes, he was putting a little bit of gunpowder, and then he would take, like, the hot bullet casing and sear it so that it
But he, like, sealed. Straight up put matches in his wound.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
You said the hot bullet casing.
Well, he took a hot bullet. He took the bullet casing and heated the flat end up.
Okay.
And then used it to seal.
But you didn't say anything about the matches.
I did.
When?
I said he took the powder and put it in there, and then he
the gunpowder came from the matches?
Yeah. Well, it was some sort of powder, sulfur or gunpowder. It was one of those.
I was like this during this movie.
Yeah, and at this point, notes. She was also doing this.
Yeah, I was like, ugh. He also like made his own staples.
Yes, so,
giant staples.
So he has this like giant wound in his side, and at this point, it was kind of crazy because he still has his mining pan
and his pickaxe.
And he's got the mining pan sitting there, and you see him like dig out like a shard of metal and throw it in, and then he'd seal that. And pull out a different shard of metal and throw it into that. Yeah. And then you see on his side, he has this really big gash. And he finds a piece of, like, metal. And he has a pair of pliers. And he'll snip off a piece and bends it. So it's like a staple. And then puts it into his body to staple that shut.
Yeah.
And then what does he do?
I don't know.
The gasoline. He poured the gasoline all over it.
Yeah.
Remember?
And then they stopped showing it at that point. So the other pilot, who's like semi-lucid, is just watching him in horror.
Yeah.
Watching him do all this, pouring the gasoline on his body, and then we're going to get a cut.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the chapter. So now we are back to the tank.
Yes.
And we see him take off in the tank. Although we don't really see him. We see the tank, we see the plane take off.
Right.
We don't know that he's in it, but we're assuming he's in it.
Assuming.
We also don't know that he's taken the pilot with him, but he did.
I assume we'll get to that.
Not to fly the plane, because that guy was out of it, right?
Yeah.
So, the tank is still traveling the road. What?
It is.
Okay. And they come upon a roadblock because there's a plane in their road. And
what?
They're like, is this the plane we're trying to meet? So they're trying to get to this meeting point.
Right.
And
there's a cargo plane waiting.
The officer they've already discussed, Wolf and the head guide, that they won't be able to take everybody because they're not all going to fit on this plane. Right. And they're like, ha ha ha, we can just leave all these guys with the women. I'm sure they'll find something to do. So we know that they're trying to make their way to this meeting point. And the guy goes, is this the plane? And he's like, no, you idiot. This is just some other plane. Yeah. And they go up to investigate it. They open the cockpit, and they see that it's a totally different pilot, but he has a rope around his neck, the one that they used to hang Sisu.
And Whoop is like,
this is my rope.
Well, he was like, the pilot's been hanged.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, this is my rope. This is the rope I hung...
A Tommy.
I think he called him... Koshai.
So, now the officer is scared. This is the first time that the officer is like, oh crap. So he's like, everybody leave, go back to our vehicles, get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
The soldiers get back into the truck that has all the women, and they are talking about Sisu, the legend, and the woman who volunteered, she laughs to herself, and they say, "Why are you laughing?" And she says, "Well, basically you're all done for because he refuses to die. He will never give up." She says,
"Well, yeah, so the soldier's like, what, you believe he's immortal?" And she's like, no, he just refuses to die.
Yeah, he refuses to give up.
Yeah.
Until, if you take everything from him,
yeah,
he will never stop coming for you.
Won't ever stop.
And so the women now have hope. And she tells the men, she's like, "I'm laughing because you're already dead."
Yeah, you just don't know it yet.
And now all of a sudden they are stabbed and thrown from the truck.
Well, one was stabbed and thrown from the truck.
Well, I'm just generalizing.
Gotcha.
So then the woman is reaching for the gun that the dead soldier left behind when he got thrown from the vehicle. Oops. And Sisu climbs into the truck and hands her the gun.
Yes.
Because she isn't quite to it. And then he turns to his side, and we see that he's full of guns. Yes. And we don't see, but he's handing them out to all the women.
Right.
And now we're in chapter 6.
Kill them all?
Kill them all.
Woo! Here we go now!
Is this the final chapter? This is the final chapter.
I'm sorry if you're German, but these Nazis get what's coming to them. I'm telling you.
Yeah. So, the woman... This is great because... Sorry, were you about to call?
No. Go.
This part's great because the women actually finally get to start fending for themselves, taking matters into their own hands, and getting some justice.
Yeah, getting some justice.
So the main woman, the only one that we've heard talk, and I don't know what her name is. So
red dress.
The red dress?
Maroon dress.
Oh, the brunette woman. She climbs into... So she stabs the driver of the truck.
No, that is Sisu.
Oh, Sisu did it.
Sisu does it with his pick.
Well, because I thought she just had a dagger, and I was like,
No. Sisu does it, and then she throws the guy out of the truck, and she gets in, and then Sisu's still on top of the truck.
Okay, I was like, wow, this lady's pretty strong.
Yeah.
So she's now driving the truck that has been carrying them all in the back. And she drives up next to the other truck, and she's just like looks to the side.
Not yet.
Oh,
not yet. You forgot.
Oh yeah. I
she hits the brakes.
He tells her.
Yeah, he tells her to slow down.
Well, he doesn't say anything. Actually, does he say anything?
No.
He actually doesn't have any words in this entire film.
No, he does.
Does he? He doesn't. Oh, at the very end when he gets to the final spot.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so he signals to her to slow down, so she puts the brakes on. The tank is behind them, and the tank catches up all of a sudden because they put the brakes on. The barrel goes through the truck into where the women are.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay. And I said, well, that's figurative filming right there because what they've been doing in that truck. So Sisu climbs from... So the reason they don't see him is because nobody's on top of the tank at this point.
Right.
Previously, a lot of the time in this film, the officer has been riding on the front of the tank. He's just been standing out there. But they're not at this point. So he climbs over. Now he's on top of the tank.
Yes.
And the truck starts up again, so they pull back out. And there's a woman in the back of the truck that takes the dead soldier's arm and is like waving out the back of the truck to signal that everything's fine. So... Then the woman who's driving pulls the truck up next to the other truck, and she's just like, hi, but she doesn't say anything. She just looks at him, and they're like, huh? And then the women all open the what is that called?
The side of the canvas.
The fabric. Yeah. It's like a canvas-covered truck, and they open fire on all the soldiers in that truck, and they're all dead.
Yeah, so that whole truck's now dead.
So how come the tank doesn't see that? Do they see it?
I don't know that they're paying attention at that point because Sisu is taking his mining pick and he's like
mining through the top of the tank. Which would that actually even do anything?
It should not.
No.
It should not.
But it's just making noise.
Yeah.
That they can feel they're being attacked.
Yeah. And so the commanding officer sends Wolf out.
Well, first he's like, stop. So he throws the brakes on and Sisu rolls off the tank. And the Wolf climbs out, and now they're fighting on top of the tank, right?
Well, he tries to shoot him, and he can't, and because Sisu gets like right up under the front of the tank, And then they start the tank moving, and he runs around the back and climbs back up, and then they start fighting.
And so is it Wolf and him that fall off, or the guy with the goggles that fall off?
Yes, it's Wolf and Sisu who fall off.
Okay, so now they're fist fighting on the. They're fist fighting on the ground?
Yeah, they're fighting.
Tommy has like a knife or a gun, and he's about to kill him, right? And then he's like, that's when the motorcycle rolls up.
Well, he has his pick.
But that's when the motorcycle rolls up, right?
That's when the motorcycle rolls up. So the
officer and the tank pilot guy are just going. They're just leaving Wolf behind.
They're just going.
Okay.
And then Sisu, he's got Wolf in one hand and the motorcycle with the side gunner. They pull up, and he just picks up his pickaxe and points it at them, and
they surrender. They throw
their guns down, and they take off running.
So now he's like, sweet, I've got a motorcycle. Yeah. Climbs in, takes off, leaves Wolf
alone.
Yeah. So now I was like, he's just going to leave him there? And he's like, Tim said he's leaving him for the women. Yeah. So the women, they're come walking up
out of the mist.
Yes. Or in a line together. They're not in a car.
No.
So they come up, they're all armed with their guns. They walk up to Wolf, and he's whimpering and crying, and then they don't show what they do to him.
Yes.
So next we get to the pilot, right?
Yes.
So we finally get to the plane. It's a bigger plane.
Right. It's a cargo plane.
And there's one pilot standing there by the plane, and the tank with the officer and whoever's driving it arrive there. They get out, and the pilot just looks at the officer. I don't even think he says anything.
No.
And the officer turns and shoots his own driver.
Yeah.
And then those two men get on the plane, and they get ready to take off.
Yes.
And so then Sisu comes riding up in his motorcycle, and he's riding in the direction the plane's going to go. So he starts shooting up their whole windshield.
The windshield.
And so he's shooting a lot, but they continue to go, and they take off, and he takes his pickaxe, and he's raising it over his head, and he just... What is the film where... Is it on... It's a Marvel movie, right? Where there's that big worm, and they just slice the whole worm's belly or something like that as it's going by?
Is that the Guardians of the Galaxy one?
I think it's in one of the Marvel movies, but that's what I'm thinking. That's what he's gonna do with the pickaxe. He's gonna slice the whole plane, but no, he just uses it to grab onto it.
Yes,
but it doesn't show. So anyway, the plane's in the air, and the pilot's like, "I'm severely injured," and the officer says, "If you're alive, fly this plane."
Yep.
So we learn that he's still in charge. So then we see that Sisu is holding on to the bottom of the plane. His body is horizontal, perpendicular with the bottom of the plane. He's just holding on with his pickaxe. He comes undone, and he slides back to the back wheel and grabs onto the wheel. And he starts hacking away at the bottom of the plane with his pickaxe. And the guys in the cockpit, they're like,
we may have a problem.
So officer guy goes back to investigate, and Sisu tackles him.
Yes.
Because he's dug up from the bottom of the plane.
Yes.
A big enough hole for his body.
Yes.
Climbed up there. But Sisu is exhausted, severely injured. He just takes a Rocky Balboa beating from this guy. Yes. Except the officer has a metal hook thing he's literally hitting him in the face with.
Yeah, it's a cargo tie-down strap. So basically it has a hook on the end.
To hook onto the top
thingy. To hook onto the thing, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, he's being brutally beat, but he just won't die. And even the officer, as he's beating him, goes, "Why won't you die?"
It's a syllable beating. Grandma would have been proud.
And he's beating him in the face. And you can see that his face is just getting taken off. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And then he just stops, and he's just looking at him. And he's like, "Is he dead?" And he's like, "No." And Sisu looks over and sees that the plane is hauling this...
There's a bomb.
Bomb.
Yes.
And he can see that it's in this hatch where the bomb gets dropped from.
Right.
So it's not just carrying a bomb, it's ready in position to be dropped.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And you can see, when he came into the plane, you could see the bomb, and it just has a lever that you just pull the lever and it'll drop the bomb.
Oh, okay. Or they could probably drop it from the cockpit? Or no, there has to be someone back there doing that.
No, somebody would have to be back there doing it.
Okay. So he looks over at it, and the officer goes to hit him again with this thingy. And he catches it this time. Instead of just getting beat in the face, like he was just kind of letting it happen before because he's so tired.
Yeah.
He catches it, quickly hooks it onto the bomb, directly onto the bomb.
Yeah, onto the tail fin of the bomb.
And the man's holding it.
Right. Well,
he has it wrapped around his hand.
He has it wrapped around his hand because he had that wrapped around so he could beat Sisu with it.
Yeah, so it wasn't as much as like whipping him with it. It was like wrapped, and the metal part was like brass knuckles, kind of.
Yeah.
So he catches it, he hooks it onto it, opens the latch, and the man, and picture like a kid with a bunch of balloons floating up into the sky, but it's happening in reverse. And he's going down towards the earth, trailing this bomb, and then gets to the earth and explodes.
But I love it because on the way down, you hear him yell, F you!
Really?
Yes,
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Officer Dude's finally dead.
Yes.
Sisu is sitting there.
So how many are left now?
Nobody.
Just the pilot, right? Just the pilot and Wolf.
Well, no, the pilot's not alive.
Well, we find that out now.
So he's sitting there and he's like, okay, I think I'm done. And he's catching his breath in the hold, and you see this bottle roll towards him, and Tim goes, the plane's going down.
Yeah.
Because it's rolling towards the pilot. And so then he looks at it, and he's like, he goes to check the pilot's dead in the front seat. He almost looked like he got shot again, but I guess he just finally died from his wound.
Finally died from the wounds.
So we see he's pretty close to the ground. They're going fast. He starts frantically searching the hold for his gold or a parachute or something.
For the parachute. He had the gold.
He already had it.
Yeah, he got the gold.
Okay.
Because he grabbed that from the cockpit when he saw that the pilot was dead. And so then he's going back and he's looking through all these crates and everything, trying to find a parachute. And he can't find one.
And there's no words. So this movie, if you know about a plane, you know he's looking for a parachute.
Yeah. And so what does he find?
I don't know.
The tie-down straps.
Okay.
So he secures himself.
He doesn't look secure.
He secured himself so that when the plane crashed,
he doesn't fly out. So he needs to not fly out, but he's obviously about to take a massive impact.
Yeah.
So the plane crashes.
Boom!
Looks the same as the bomb that he dropped.
Yes.
And he's tied into these ropes sitting on the bottom of the hold. Plane crashes. Boom. We don't see any more about that.
Let's cut to something else then.
Yeah, they cut to the women who are now driving the tank.
Yes.
They get to these soldiers and they're speaking to them.
So they're talking in Finnish or Swedish, and
the guy's like, "How do you have this tank?"
Yeah, they're like, "How do you
I was looking down and taking notes, so I didn't see exactly what they
said. Yeah, and he was like asking questions like, "Where are the Nazis?" And she's like, "Well, we got one right here." And there's Wolf, and he's tied up like hog-tied.
Hog-tied like on a spit. On a spit, yeah.
And on the turret of the
So we heard
tank.
him screaming before. So the screams weren't from being killed.
No.
Justice.
Anyhow, and then they're like, "Well, where are the rest of the Nazis?" And she's like, "They're dead." Or no, they're in hell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's like, "Hell?"
And that's the end of that.
And that's the end of that.
So the women have gotten back to their people.
Yes.
And now they have a tank. Now we cut back to Sisu, who climbs out of
a mud bog.
Mud bog. And I was like, why is he in water?
Yeah, I guess they crashed into a muddy bog.
Which probably dampened his impact.
Yeah. Lucky.
Yeah, well, not luck. Destined to
luck.
Persevere forever.
He is the luckiest guy I've ever met.
So he and his wounds are fully covered in mud now. Climbs out of the bog using his pickaxe to leverage himself out.
Yeah.
He gets out. He gets back in the motorcycle. The next thing we see is him on his motorcycle.
He finds the motorcycle again, and he's
How does he find the motorcycle again?
I don't know.
He's far away from it.
Okay.
So they cut from the spot where his plane has crashed We see him racing off on his motorcycle with the dog in the seat, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the dog's not running alongside him.
No, the dog is in the seat.
So we know he's cleaned up. He's got his dog. He's on his motorcycle. We see him race into a metropolitan city that is severely war injured.
It's
we don't know exactly where he is, though.
Doesn't say.
So he rides up to the steps of this big building. He walks in. There are people in there doing some kind of commerce. He walks up to the desk, and we think, okay, he's at the bank.
Yeah.
And he stands there, and his first words after he dumps his two, what'd you call them?
The
satchels?
Yeah, the satchels.
Dumps all the gold out onto her bank.
Yeah.
Onto her desk.
And like I said, there's like 80 pounds of gold here. It's a lot of gold. Because, I mean, even the small nuggets were like that big. It was ridiculous.
So does he actually, I think he speaks in his native tongue, and there's subtitles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he tells her...
big bills, please.
Yeah, or he says, bills, please. Bigger, the better, right?
Yeah, something like that. Because it'll be easier lighter to carry.
Yeah, I wrote it down. He says, it won't be so heavy to carry.
Yeah.
The end.
The end. That's it.
So we don't find out what his plans are to do with this money, who he's going to go give it to, how much it was.
Nothing.
If they even exchange it for him.
Yeah, I mean, and that was just the end. And it was kind of fun to end that way.
I loved the ending.
Because it was just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right?
But maybe, probably only for a little bit.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But this story is done. I got to my goal.
Exactly. So he got his gold to the goal line.
Yep.
And yeah. And it was a really...
It was a good film.
It was a good film. I wouldn't say a fun film.
No.
I wouldn't say... It wasn't like a... It was John Wick-esque without being comedic.
No comedy, less fanciful. Because John Wick is like in a fanciful time where there's this head table and the marquee and the blah, 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 blah. No, this is like people lived through everything we saw in this film.
Yeah. It was an interesting docudrama. I know it wasn't like a documentary or anything, but it was just like an interesting look at like that kind of time frame, because I mean we haven't really grown up with world wars, right?
Yeah.
None of us have been through a world war.
Only a few people alive have.
And even when we think about that, we think mostly of American troops or sometimes the British troops, or you don't necessarily think of like what is happening in the back country of Finland, right?
Yeah, it was really and there's people that are having this in their life right now. It may not be on a world scale, but
like Ukraine. What
these soldiers were just doing to all of these innocent people for no reason at all.
Yeah.
So it was a tale of hope in the way that John Wick is, but set in a realistic style with all of the stylization taken out of it. Beautiful filmography.
Yeah.
You had the feeling at the end of it like it's not, if you put your mind to anything, you can do anything. Not so much like that, but just like it's a tale of hope. And
it is. It's one of those tales where it's like, you can't take hope away. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be alive, mm-hmm. and somebody's going to carry that torch. Mm-hmm. The human race is pretty resilient, and we'll just figure out a way. And I mean, it was definitely like I was on the seat of my
edge of your seat.
Yeah, the edge of my seat.
There was no downtime in this movie. It was just
It was pretty fast paced, but like I said, it wasn't John Wick fast paced. right? Because it wasn't like...
Yeah, because it's not set in now when people are driving around in their Lamborghinis and just
not
zooming to each
not only
thing.
that, but when he killed that first group of Nazis, there was like, what, 7 of them? 5 or 7? You saw him kill like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You know,
but you didn't see like the deaths of all
of them, right? And so it was kind of more of a, okay, this happened, let's move on. Then, you know, the other group comes in and you see the aftermath.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily see every kill.
So more about the message of his perseverance and less about the gratuitous violence. Yeah. Although there is a lot of blood and gore in this film.
There is.
If that doesn't bother you, if you know that's not going to bother you, I recommend this film for you.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Just be aware of the trigger warnings and...
very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Would you watch another film by this director? I would too.
Yeah. Let's look it up. Let's look it up and give him some props.
What was...
Jalmari Helander. And he wrote the film too.
Okay. All said and done.
Yeah.
It was a good movie.
Yeah. Recommend.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just as long as you're aware of the content matter.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, thank you for suggesting this film, which got a thumbs up from me. So, Good job, Zebadextra.
You're quite welcome. I appreciate you watching it with me.
I hope you join us for the next episode, which will be a book review.
I will.
We're going to be reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Yes. We are reading it currently. Tim will be leading the discussion, so we hope you join us as well.
I am now all the way into chapter 1, so...
Yay!
Let's get on this, huh?
All right, guys, so we will see you back very soon. Yep. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, leave us a comment. Let us know if you've seen Sisu and what you thought about it. And if you're going to watch it.
Or if there are any other films that are similar or...
anything else you recommend.
Foreign production films that we could look at.
Definitely. All right. We hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you back soon.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.